I once took a train all the way across Texas when I was a child, all by myself, 13, 14 years old in the early 90s. Story time. So I don't know if trains are anything like this anymore, but when I was a kid, I learned a lot of lessons on that train trip. I really did. Going across the state, it took more than a day, but we stayed in San Antonio for a few hours. And of course, we stopped several times along the way, but we stayed in San Antonio for a few hours, and that train station is down on the Riverwalk. And that was the first time I had ever been to San Antonio, and I was a kid. And I had never seen homeless people before. I had never seen women of the night before. There's a lot of things I was exposed to down there on the Riverwalk late at night that, these days, I guess it's pretty common for a lot of you, but, back then they would let kids move about the country as long as you knew how to act. It's really crazy. You could go shopping, you could go into restaurants, and if you knew how to act, believe it or not, even bars, most places didn't even really ID real hard, at least down in Texas back then. And I was about 6 foot tall. So I had made some friends on this train and ended up partying the Riverwalk at about 14 years old, walking around the Riverwalk and partying with these guys that were just a little bit older than me. And at some point, these ladies of the night approached us. And I didn't even know what to think. I was, oh my God. They were extremely nice to everybody, of course. And one of the guys left with them. One of the guys did leave with them. And we just went about our night. We just partied. We had a great time. We got back to the train and passed out. And when I woke up, and we're still like going through the deserts of West Texas, the guys were like, hey, is so-and-so with you? I said, no, man, he's not with me, man. What's up? He didn't make it back to the train. Like, no, he went with those girls last night. Nobody's seen or heard from him. Back then, there was no cell phones, any of that. And they were all like, man, when we get where we're going, we're just going to, call down to San Antonio, start calling around the jails and hospitals and make sure he's all right. They're just hoping that he calls his parents or something and asks for another train ticket or whatever. The guy was very, very young. But back then, like I said, children, we usually just traveled across the country, believe it or not. It was just how it was. And on that trip, I learned so many lessons. When I got to where I was going, when the train finally stopped in Alpine, I was still something like 3 hours from the ranch. I mean, Texas is just so big. And then we ended up, like I said, we ended up partying down in Mexico. I learned so much on that trip. I learned that when you travel, never look like you've got a lot of money, especially when you're just really young and just a kid. Never ever dress the part like you've got a bunch of money or anything. Always look like you're broke. Otherwise, people will start asking you for money and begging for money everywhere you go. I don't know what it is, but I was a kid and people had a handout everywhere I went. I learned to choose your friends wisely on the train. And I learned to never step on anything that looks like garbage on the Riverwalk because somebody might be sleeping under it. Hell of an experience for a child. Anyway, peace and love. I'm out.